Hello and welcome to the Progress Theory, where we discuss scientific principles for optimizing human performance. My name is Dr. Phil Price, and today is the start of Season 5 of the Progress Theory, where we're going to be focusing on the science behind how you develop strength and endurance simultaneously. More specifically, how can we develop strength for weightlifting and powerlifting while developing endurance for, say, a triathlon? So in order to do this, we're going to be speaking to experts, scientists, coaches, and athletes all from the world of endurance, strength, and hybrid training. So for this first episode of Season 5, we are joined by S&C coach, hybrid athlete, and the co-host of Season 2 of the Progress Theory, Daryl Green. In this episode, we reflect on our concurrent training challenge, which we did back in 2020, when we developed strength while training for a 4-hour marathon, our goals for 2022, and Daryl's tips for developing yourself as a hybrid athlete. As always, follow the Progress Theory on Instagram, YouTube, head to our website, theprogresstheory.com, and check out all of our other episodes. Here is Daryl Green. Daryl, how are we? Welcome to Season 5 of the Progress Theory.
Hey Phil, yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, not a problem. Seems the best thing to do to start Season 5, because it's all about concurrent hybrid training, to actually review what we did in Season 2, which we did our concurrent training challenge, where we chose our exercises for strength, and we tried to improve our strength in those exercises over the 11 weeks, while also training for a marathon, which we did on the 19th of December, where in the morning we did the strength lifts, like a powerlifting meet, wasn't it? It was me, you, and Chris.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, we did that horrendous marathon because literally the elements were against us.
Yeah, I remember that day quite well. I'd never have thought the weather we had in December would have hit us all in one day.
But it was,
we had all 4 seasons in one day.
Yeah, it was completely unfair, wasn't it? If you think about it. Because there was a lot of things that was affecting it. Not only did we have hail that was literally going sideways into your face, but we had a variety of different weathers: hail, thunderstorms, complete sun, rainbows. And then halfway through the race, wasn't it? We heard, because it was 2020, we heard that we were going into a second lockdown and we weren't going to be able to see our families. That was probably the thing that impressed me most, because it would have been so easy just to give up that marathon, hearing news like that, hearing news I wouldn't have been able to see my parents over Christmas because we were all going into lockdown. But no, we stuck at it and got it done.
Yeah, thankfully I didn't get that news until the end, because maybe emotion and a bit of a reaction would have come out of me.
Yeah, you're good at putting the blinders on during the endurance exercise and just, don't talk to me, I've got to get this done. Whereas I'm probably, I was limping around, wasn't I? Because I'd hurt my calf on kilometre 2 and was just kind of limping through the marathon. But so there was plenty of time for me to hear that horrible news. But so do you want to reflect on the scores you got during that concurrent training challenge?
Yeah, so my lift for the challenge was a snatch. Yours was slightly different. So it was to test my snatch, and my lift of that day was 116.5 kilograms. And the marathon was just under 4 hours, of 3 hours, 59 minutes. I can't remember the seconds exactly, but I know it was 3:59. So we set out a goal to be a sub 4. And I managed it well enough to do that. And during that, the snatch was actually a lifetime best at that time.
Nice.
So whilst training for a marathon, I still managed to carry out a lifetime best for the weightlifter snatch.
What was the increase in the snatch? Like how many kilos did you increase by?
It was only 1.5 kilogram lifetime best. And I actually PB'd during the training too. I hit a 116 a few weeks before we actually tested it on the day. So I'd already almost proved what we set out to prove, that you can get strong and you can run long or carry out an endurance task simultaneously like we done. And I think that you were very similar on some of your stuff. So we achieved what we set out to do.
Yeah. I mean, my aim was the 4-hour marathon as well, but and that's what I had aimed at with training. But with my calf going during it was the second kilometre, I remember it, that kind of went out the window. It was all about just getting it done. But I also did improve all of my strength lifts from varied degrees. I chose it was the front squat, deadlift, weighted pull, and the strict press, wasn't it? So I'd improved all of those in some fashion from 1 kilo up into 10, 12 kilos. But based on, obviously, yours was much more successful than mine. What was the biggest learning point from that concurrent training challenge? What about the programming did you learn most from and that you've taken away into your hybrid training going forward?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, on the run up or haven't listened to the season 2 yet, on the run up to this, after me and Phil spoke about doing this challenge, I'd only just completed an ultra marathon, a 50-kilometer ultra marathon. So one of the biggest points I knew then was, well, running or the endurance side, I'm already there. I'm fairly strong at that. That can kind of have a only slightly lower priority than the weightlifting. I say only slightly, so I didn't lose it completely, and go the opposite way where weightlifting then become a strength and then endurance drops. It was just enough to manage what I'd already trained for on the ultra, but whilst building my weightlifting up and my strength up to be successful on the snatch. So probably coming from that, one of the biggest learning point is definitely not to for me wasn't to prioritize any. It's just like an equalizer almost. You're just turning up one just slightly more than the other, based on, I guess, training history, what you've just done, if you've had any experience in what type of concurrent or hybrid goal you have, if any. It might just be you just want to be good at a fairly good all-rounder, so to speak. And then it wasn't to change too much. I know I needed to snatch, so I needed to be fairly good at snatching, and I needed to have fairly strong legs and a good pull. I didn't need to put too much, we'll call it accessory work into the training. So it's almost knowing what is essential towards that goal at that time, and only having that, and not just adding in stuff. We were speaking before this, like the stuff just to make you feel good. Kind of like think about the goal and what you're doing, and cut the unnecessary work that potentially can cause unnecessary fatigue and then cause you to not be successful in the goals.
So regarding the equalizer, I'm assuming you mean from, okay, say we've got 6 days a week worth of training, 1 session each day, 3 of them are strength and 3 of them are endurance, and say that's a 50-50 split. Because you had all of that training in the ultra marathon prior to that, your endurance side was probably better off than the strength side or the weightlifting side. So because of that, you then worked on your weaknesses, I say that in inverted commas, but you prioritized strength because you already had prioritized endurance work prior to the 11 weeks leading up to this event. So if we say we had a 50-50 split, did you sort of reduce it by sort of like a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split? What kind of change do you like to make? Do you still like to keep it relatively equal, but you just move the dial slightly on one side when you want to try and focus on one particular aspect?
Yeah, so just move the dial slightly, really. I only did 2 endurance days, or days where I ran, and the other days were lifting. 2 of them primarily snatching, and the other one I did clean and jerk, or some kind of clean on that day. And that day never changed. That third day of strength never changed for me. I just kept that the same the whole way through. Maybe I slightly progressed it in loads, but it almost really stayed the same. It was something that I didn't want to. It was almost like a control, because I was progressing on the other 4 days. I didn't want to then chuck in a 5th day where I was going to continue progressing, accumulating fatigue and so on. So it was almost taking note of that day, actually how I'm feeling from progressing the snatch days, the interval or threshold day that I had, and then I would finish off the week with a longer run all the time. So,
how do you know if you're accumulating residual fatigue or too much fatigue? There's always going to be some level of fatigue that you're managing over the training week or over the weeks. But how do you determine, like, I'm not going to include that? That is sort of junk training. It won't actually improve what I want to improve. I want to make sure I'm only including the essentials in this program.
People will talk about training fatigue and that, when essentially we're only spending 60 minutes to 90 minutes a day in that. And I get your muscles are going to be tired. There's going to be some kind of damage, but the 23 and a half to 22 and a half to 23 hours outside of the gym is also, well, it's a greater time to accumulate fatigue, whether that's through lack of sleep. Your day job might be quite physical. I would also like look at stuff like that at the same time. But when it comes to the training, more trial and error.
Have you got an example where you feel like you've included too much and you've decided to drop it down?
The day we tested, remember the first test at the 11 weeks, and I did say to you, I'm going to go out for a long run the next day, just to see where I'm at, because we never tested the marathon on the run up to this. And instantly, like, knew that even on the run, it's like I'm not right. So maybe that's not an example of me pulling training back, but it was a very good assessment at what I needed to put in there moving forward. Not intentional assessment. It was just my back was blowing up. Whether that was from the day testing, I don't know. So pairing the lifting day and then a long run after, I knew that, well, I'm going to have to take this a little bit slower than I was expecting. And hence, that was the reason why I put almost that control day before my longest run. So I would snatch on the Monday, intervals of some sort on the Tuesday running, snatch on the Wednesday, Thursday off. Friday would be that clean, like, day that never really changed. Well, it really didn't change at all. And then I would do the long run the next day. So maybe that's an example of me managing that fatigue for that long run.
So you realise that placing sort of like your heavy lifting work and then having one of the long, slow zone 2 type endurance training sessions, you couldn't have that 24 hours later because of how you felt. So you've reorganised your training week to have, well, I guess based on what you described, you had a lower intensity weight resistance training day on the Saturday or the Friday. It was the Friday before your long, slow aerobic work on the Saturday. You decided, you had a snatch day on the Wednesday, and then you've got 2 days in between before you do your long zone 2 work. So you'd like to think that, based on how you were feeling, you rearranged the week so that you'd be recovered to be able to do that zone 2 work from the Wednesday snatching.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did. It wasn't so much that I guess intensity and load wise on that Friday, it was still a fairly challenging session, but nowhere near to what I'd experienced on Monday's lifting and Tuesday's, say, intervals day. I knew, and training had shuffled as the weeks went on, and when we got closer to our final week, I hadn't accumulated fatigue in the week running up to our Saturday test day. So I guess it was almost a guess. Yeah, this snatch is going to be all right. And then 4 hours later, I was able to run a marathon and just get through it and finish it. Partly for training, partly mental resilience, I guess you could call it. But felt pretty comfortable throughout it.
So what are your hybrid goals for 2022?
On the year we did that test, I had actually signed up for Ironman Ireland 2021. So I was supposed to do that last year. That has actually been postponed to this year. So, so I'm going to do first Ironman. Probably going to be my first triathlon too. Just going in for that. I want to keep some fairly good bottom numbers on Olympic weightlifting. At the same time, I've marked some numbers down. I want to maintain a 100 kilo snatch and a 130 kilo clean and jerk whilst doing the Ironman, and I am going to test them close. So it won't be the same day like we done,
nice.
But it will definitely be the same week.
So you can maintain. Well, let's say you could set up your training so that the week before the Ironman, okay, I know I need to do a 100 kilo snatch and a 130 kilo clean and jerk. Do that on the Monday. I know I've maintained a certain level of strength, and because you're going to be pretty fatigued by that point. And so you have to really manage your resistance work to make sure that doesn't completely throw off all the endurance work that you've done putting in for the Ironman. So it's not as simple as, let's just keep them separate by a week. That's, it's taken into account everything that you do leading up to the Ironman event.
Yeah, of course. It's not. It's this whole training period that I've got for the next 6 to 8 months, managing that, and I'm just going to use the same lessons from the last one. My weightlifting is a lot better currently, I would say, than what it was the time we done our concurrent challenge. Like, I have since PB'd my snatch. It was only a month or two ago that I done a 130 clean and jerk. I feel like I'd definitely be capable of more at the moment. Whether that's going to drop down, I can almost predict that it's going to slightly, just purely from the training volume. I don't have a time for the Ironman. Maybe 12 to 13 hours is a good one to aim for. I've not really looked at that too much. I just getting stuck into the
12 would be pretty good.
Yeah.
That's for someone that's new to Ironman and technically a heavier athlete, that would be a pretty good time, 12.
Yeah. Between 12 and 13, I'm happy with that. That's my biggest goal so far this year. Just in and amongst that, there'll be other little things that I'll do. Like we got High Rocks London coming up, and like I'm going
for the. You're going for the pro again?
Yeah. Managed to get
men's pro,
get tickets for the pro. And
I
mean, I'm not. It's kind of where I'm at with training and competition and all that stuff. I want to still enjoy everything that I'm doing, and if that means one weekend I go up to London with all the lads and we do an hour of fitness together, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, but and then grab some food after, have a beer, then I will. And I've had the time where my life's been dedicated on competing, and it's kind of, I just want to just be in the thick of kind of everything.
So it's about finding a nice balance between achieving good hybrid goals, but at the same time having a good sort of, let's say, training life balance, where training isn't the number one focus in your life. There are other things that you might want to do, so you put a little bit more focus in those. So balancing it. Yeah, hybrid training is a balancing act, and then you've got to do the same thing with your work-life balance anyway. So it's just finding the way of managing everything.
Yeah, I find that more, that's kind of what hybrid kind of means to me. It's not just like we have these big goals. I have this big goal, Ironman, weightlifting, numbers that I want to hit, when essentially it's just being relatively strong or slightly above average and being able to go long or for a sustained period of time.
Be strong and go long.
Yeah. You could. We need to put on a t-shirt.
Well, you know what you're going to wear at High Rocks then.
Yeah.
Be strong and go long.
Yeah.
So, based with that philosophy, that hybrid philosophy, what do you think are the common mistakes a lot of people make when training for hybrid goals?
Having a different approach with the equalizer type thing that I mentioned at the start is just like, I want to run a marathon, right? Find a marathon program. Oh, I want to deadlift 200 kilos. Find a powerlifting program. Yeah, we'll just stick that on top of each other. I'll deadlift and then I'll run. You know, that I find is definitely the biggest mistake. It just trying to, because we can search these programs all day long on the internet and books. They are designed for the powerlifter or the marathon runner. And the sheer volume of both of those are just going to end up taking their toll after 4 weeks in. And you may see improvements at the beginning, or you may get injured, who knows. But it's definitely going to accumulate far too much fatigue just from sheer volume of it both. They're designed to do one or the other.
Yeah, I see that problem as well. And another problem I often see is that people will get the two separate programs and they may not just add them together, but they might go, okay, I'll do 50% of one, I'll do 50% of the other, and then I'll add them together.
Yeah.
Which I can understand that. Like, at least you're reducing the volume. You have an understanding that, okay, if I do too much, the accumulative fatigue of that is just going to be ridiculous, and I'm going to hit a wall like 4 to 6 weeks in this. But I think what they miss is just the discussion around how you could probably have a sit down and really understand, okay, if I'm going to train for these at the same time, what are the key things I need to be good at these sports? And this isn't necessarily like I want to hit these certain goals. It's like, well, what physiological and biomechanical adaptations do I need to get better here? And then if you've got everything from like a marathon and a powerlifting program, okay, which of those programs will help develop this physiological adaptation, which will help develop this physiological adaptation, and then you start to eliminate things that way, because you might have one session which trains certain things in powerlifting to the point where you might not need session 2 and 3 because you're getting that load or that stimuli from something else provided by the marathon. I don't know what it might be, but that type of thinking. And then all of a sudden you have something that's not just a powerlifting and marathon program, it's clearly a hybrid type programming. You're trying to understand the exact stress that you need to improve or develop the physiological adaptation to get better at 2 separate domains. And I think that's a really important message to try and get out there. So just so people don't grab two things. Okay, it's okay. I'm not going to just add them together. I'm taking some sessions away. So actually, when you go through that process of trying to eliminate things in the program, have a real critical eye as to like what are the physiological adaptations that you need to have.
Yeah, completely. And there probably will be some crossover, like you said, that what is in the powerlifting program will complement your running, and it might already be in that running program you're looking at. So, it's like that cutting the unnecessary stuff or the duplicated stuff. Almost might not seem duplicated, but what you're going to get from like that adaptation wise could be very similar, and you wouldn't need to do it from both programs.
Get rid of that junk volume.
Yeah.
So, well, you're already training it at this point during this part of the training week, so you don't need to include that on this day as well. In fact, doing double actually makes you worse rather than actually makes you better.
Completely. Another one is kind of that awareness of that fatigue, I would say, maybe. It's just it might not be as easy for everyone. It depends how long you've been training. It depends how in tune you are with yourself, I imagine. But almost rating a session, giving every session a little bit of feedback personally in a book or on your app that you use if you're getting it programmed by a coach. All those little things can just help, like monitor that. Whether it's like simple RPE per session, how did it feel? This was an 8 out of 10. Or it was less, or it was well above, whatever. Yeah.
No, certainly. I think that's something I want to really investigate in this season, is trying to understand around utilizing something subjective to try and provide some direction when it comes to intensity, and I guess in turn some volume based on how you're programming. Definitely had some conversations recently regarding how even if you are monitoring session RPE or ratings of perceived exertion out of 10, like you kind of described, but you're not necessarily making loads of auto-regulated changes at first. You're trying to build a bit of a profile. So say you don't make any changes and you've monitored each session. It's given a mark out of 10 for like a session RPE. And you look back on 6 weeks worth of data, and then all of a sudden you can see, okay, I can really start to see if I have these two sessions relatively near to each other, there's a bit of a problem. I'm clearly not recovering well enough after this session, and it's really affecting the RPE of the following session. I wanted the RPE of that session to be this, but it's much higher, likely because of what's come before. And then all of a sudden you start to get a bit of an idea as to how you deal with residual fatigue. You've got a blueprint. I mean, 6 weeks isn't much, but it's better than nothing. It's giving you it's leaving clues as to how you respond to stress from training. So, no, I'm definitely with you there with the session RPEs. I think they're going to be quite big within the hybrid training space, just like they are in other sports.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really do. And it's just a little bit shies away a little bit from that, but just that I think you shared something about this recently. Is about the kind of moderate way all the way through it, instead of just trying to underestimating what you can achieve in a greater period of time and overestimating what you can achieve in a week. Some people they want to kind of get better every week, and sometimes that just won't happen. So I guess having a bit of discipline with yourself when training, and even my advice is leave the session knowing that there was a little bit more in there than attempting to try and do better just because you know it feels good. Just having a bit of discipline there.
Yeah, that's a good principle to kind of follow, because ultimately, if you think about how we want to progress slowly over time. It's easy to aggressively progress quite quickly within the first 8 weeks, but quite often that just hits a peak and then drops right down. It doesn't show good, solid progression over a year, for example. And so many people think, oh, I can, so I should, and they don't necessarily need to. And this is particularly important for hybrid training because you're trying to balance two training modalities that are very different to each other. So the progression is going to be much slower already anyway, because you're not purely training for strength, you're not purely training for endurance. So because there's competing things there, your progression is going to be slower because there is going to be some level of interference effect. But that still doesn't mean you're not improving, but you shouldn't then program to assume that you're going to improve at a greater rate than you think you should.
Yeah.
Have I said that right?
Definitely. And it's instead of don't always measure your improvement on a specific number or a specific pace you're running at or cycling at or whatever. Measure it against that RPE that we just mentioned. Well, last week I lifted the same weights I have this week, but the session RPE was a lot lower. Well, potentially you have got stronger or you have got fitter. Or just knowing yourself, well, I definitely could have moved a little bit more weight there, or I definitely had another interval in me if you put a cap on the intervals or something like that. Instead of actually doing it, measure the improvement by the feeling that you know you could have. And then save it for the time that you do the test or whatever it is you're doing, the challenge or even the event.
No, base it all on those reps in the tank or feeling in the tank, whatever it might be, however you're gauging it. Mate, Daryl, that was awesome. But I want to go through, just before we finish, you offer some training templates, is that right? Through DG Coaching?
Yes, so I do have, individual. Individual coaching is my main thing online, in remote. And I do have some generic programs actually called The General. And that's based on being strong and going long, we could call it. So yeah, and that is through you'll find that on my platforms. So
what are they? On Instagram?
Instagram, DG Performance Coaching, or on my website is dgcoaching.co.uk. They're the main two that I use or respond to. You can give me a message if you've got any questions, or email me, which you'll find on my website.
Very good. Yeah, definitely. And we'll definitely keep everyone updated based on your training. And definitely recommend everyone to go check out Daryl's Instagram so you can see his progression with training. And I think I might pop up on it. I need to start getting some points during the year where I'll be sort of retesting my sort of weightlifting, because that's going to be a particular focus of mine this year, snatch and clean and jerk, purely because of the terrible history I've had with that sport, and it's my chance to have a bit of redemption. So maybe I'll have to convene on when you're doing the retest before your Ironman and go for it.
Completely, mate. I'll be looking forward to even just get some training in together, mate. Really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice, mate. Putting the miles. And obviously, High Rocks.
Yeah,
will be there.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fun.
Round 2. Cool, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Take care.